All right, so drop into your hearts. Take a nice breath or two or three. And give yourself this time to just say thank you inside. Thank you for what it takes to come to the chair. What it takes for you to change your life, to be here. And what it will take for you when you leave to keep that change bubbling up in a beautiful way that will touch you deeply and continue to unfold so that you can receive more love, so that you can hear your own wisdom talking to you, so that you can be the love in the world and the change that's happening inside of you. That all of this is who you are becoming with each breath, with each thought of your own healing and your own transformation. Take another breath into your heart and feel the gratitude for all that you are. Not just what you've received, although those are wonderful gifts, but all that you are and all that you are becoming.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. I would like to continue the subject of connection that was started today in the last channel that I did. There are so many questions that humans would have about this seemingly intangible idea of a creator, of God, of spirit, of a source that is beyond your imagination, but one that somehow you're directly connected to. Hard for you to believe, truly, that there is an entourage, if you want to call it anything, a group, if you wish, around each of you all of the time, and that group knows your name. How many times have we said the name is not the one you think? The name is of a soul group. The name is bigger even than you can imagine. The name itself exists in light. And the name is not an identifier. The name is a descriptor of magnificence and speaks of a soul group in this galaxy that belongs to Earth. If I could summarize that, I would say, God knows you. And this, dear ones, has to be realized or trained or somehow gotten across to most human beings. And the reason is common and obvious. And I will go into this yet again, the idea that humans have that everything around them that has intelligence echoes a human's intelligence. When you have a pet, and the pet cannot understand, of course, your language, but they understand your emotion. You talk to them as though they understand everything. You project humanism on the animal. to make them feel better or whatever. The animal has no idea what you're doing, but they can feel the love that you have. Dear ones, that's the human looking down, but when the human looks up, we have told you before, an issue occurs. I'll call the issue God in a box. And the box is a human box that God exists in. For then the human projects everything that is human nature onto the Almighty. And God then is portrayed simply as a superhuman. But that human somehow has anger and disappointment and judgment, as well as love, of course. I've told you that every civilization on this planet has done the same thing. Yours has as well. I've also told you, you are number 5. You are also the civilization that would be present during the precession of the equinoxes and make the change. Other civilizations before yours have gone through similar things. We don't speak of that yet, because most humanity doesn't believe anything happened before them. Before the 6,000 or 7,000 years that you're told you've been here, when actually it's more like 50 to 60,000. Would it shock you if I told you that some of the inventions you have, the marginal ones, but important ones, such as electricity, was not only present early in your civilization, but in the civilizations before yours? And the reason, because it's easily discoverable. Nature produces it. And anyone watching and looking and interested with an inquiring mind will discover it eventually. So you're not the first. And it leads to things which I'll mention in just a moment. But what I want to tell you is that you still have a model for everything, and it's you. Communication is interesting with humanity. Let's talk only about your civilization and what happened when. So interesting. You think you're so technical. You are. What if I told you, however, that long before the telegraph or the radio or the telephone, you had a system of communicating at the speed of light 20 miles at a time? You may laugh. All they had to do was climb a mountain and give smoke signals to the next mountain. Communication at the speed of light 20 miles at a time. One mountain would talk to another, would talk to another, would talk to another. The language perhaps was a little rough, not many words, but it was communication. It was needed. The dream of all humanity always was instant communication. In a very early time, if you wanted to send a message to someone you knew in a town or a village that was far away, the system was to write a note, get on an animal of some kind, and ride the animal to the next town. And that became the mail. Today you laugh at how slow that might have been, for sometimes you'd say hello in a letter, and 3 weeks later you'd get a hello back. And that was as good as it got. In your civilization, talking about the 1700s or so, along comes a system of electricity. You called it the telegraph, where you could start then sending messages through code, long distances. 100 years later, it led to radio. And then the inventions began. But suddenly you could talk, and those a continent away could hear it in real time. Some thought that was just about as good as it would ever get. Then you could do it with pictures. And now, dear ones, with simple devices you carry in your pocket, if you have the right equipment on the other side, you could talk to the planet and they could all hear you at once. The secret, of course, is having the correct equipment, the correct connection, and that which is needed in today's world with that which you call the net. Wiring it to everyone so everyone would have the correct equipment. And now, finally, one human could talk to everyone and they could talk back. That's how far you've gone. But even today, you didn't extrapolate that technological improvement onto God. Do you realize that? You're still sending letters. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. That's not true. I can pray and I know God hears me. Yes, but dear ones, you've always felt it was one way. Because you never felt that God could hear you enough to give you an answer immediately. It was either passed down somehow or realized in some fashion or got dysfunctional somewhere along the way. I mean, the Greeks were doing it. They were sending messages through prayer to their gods who they made dysfunctional so they would be more human. In other words, it continues even today that who you are as humanity is then placed upon God. And this idea of God in the box is as follows. There's no technology yet high enough to have a real-time communication with Spirit or God, where you could have a back and forth message at the speed of light. It simply is not acceptable. Most of humanity has to go through some kind of an interloper that translates because they have the ability or the training or the gifts of being able to take your message and get it to Spirit and then have it come back in a certain way. We told you this morning that it gets even worse than that because it's often accompanied with steps of achievement or even funding in order for you to get a message, a connection to the creative source. Dear ones, this is truly understandable because this is the only model you have, and that model is yourself. And so if there's an almighty God someplace in a box somewhere, in order to get that place, wherever it is, there has to be all manner of things that you do in order to achieve that communication. We told you this morning that truly you've got the equipment already inside, and that communication is instant. You had that even when you were sending letters with animals and writers. You had that at the beginning, but you didn't understand it because you simply applied it to the way you communicate. What's interesting is as you got a communication that was as it is today, you didn't then update it and think, well, maybe the Creator has inventions as well. And even today, for most humanity, it is difficult to speak directly to the Creator. My message is this. We're going to continue just a short amount from the idea that you have and always have had the correct equipment and connection and net, or whatever you want to say it, in order to have 100% speed of light, connections beyond speed of light to the creative source, because the creative source knows you. Another interesting thing about mythology, spirituality that humans have, you have no trouble at all, truly, believing that God can hear every human being all at once through prayer. You, by the way, then put this on to a mythological creature that you have who can do the same thing, and that's Santa Claus. No matter who you are as a child, Santa can hear all of the requests at one time. Of course, you did also place the other thing on Santa Claus that you placed on the Creator. You better be good, or you don't get the present. You see where you go with this. You don't really go all the way. Even if you believe that you can communicate, there's still the idea, what does God think about it? Is it possible that spirit can be frustrated? The answer is no. That is a human emotion. Anger, no. That is a human emotion. Well, wait a minute, Klein. You said that spirit can have compassion. Isn't that a human emotion? No, dear ones, that's a creator emotion that you get by being a human. Love, compassion, benevolence, beauty. What you studied today in coherence and putting things together, all is from the creative source. Humor from the creative source. The creativity of music. The idea of harmonies causing emotional effects and sending you into coherence right from the creative source. And all the other emotions that you dream up or you have, dream up in that you paste them on the Creator, is something you have, not the Creator. Now, where am I going? Once you get to the place where you realize you don't have to climb stairs or go through someone else, that you can sit in your chair magnificent and say, Dear Spirit, I know you're with me. Dear Spirit, I know you're here. Dear Spirit, I expect benevolent things in my life, and things start changing. Once you get to that stage, dear ones, you simply threw the switch. Because from now on, you get real communication and results. Let me begin with just one or two things. God is not in a box. Let us say, for instance, you are a healer. And for so many years, you've had the gifts and the tools of healing. And let us say, for many years, there has been frustration because they either don't work well or they work too well or you cannot control them. And this would be because those gifts are a spectacular, advanced energy that most humans do not have. It even frustrated the shamans of old. That sometimes the healing occurred and sometimes it didn't, and that got them in trouble because those around them expected certain things in linearity, and that's not what the gift does. Let's say that's you. How do you think spirit reacts to this? What's really happening there? Let me tell you. You have an entourage around you. And every single one of those loves you dearly, knows your name, knows the soul that you are, and is watching you flounder because you think God's in a box. Even if you believe you can communicate, you don't think God cares enough to work with you on the issue. And in that sense, you might go a lifetime or decades with an entourage around you begging you, why don't you just ask and work this out? Because you are in communication. The line is open, the switch has been turned, and all you think is it's good enough to talk. You don't understand. It's good enough to resolve things that are multidimensional. It's good enough to change your life. But you've only gone to first base, as they say. You just threw the switch. Now you can talk. What if I told you this? That box you think God is in is inside you. Right now, to that healer, I will say this. You have the ability to work on this and design your gift. So all it creates is consistency, benevolence, beauty. That you can control the things that are beyond that which you thought were controllable because they were multidimensional gifts and others didn't have them. You thought they just were, didn't understand. You are the designer. They landed in your lap so you could design them. Imagine the cook somehow getting all the ingredients falling out of the sky. And there they are with all of the ingredients around them. And they're so frustrated that the ingredients don't make sense. And then suddenly somebody informs them, well, why don't you cook them? And they go, I can do that? And so the ingredients then become that which go into the meal, which then makes sense, and that is nourishing. But you never thought about cooking them. You never thought you were in control enough to design the pieces and the parts of the gifts you got. Every healer on the planet should know this. Not too long ago, we gave you a message that if you are a healer or you have any kind of gifts that are above that which you would call 3D or even 4D, that they're going to increase. That in this light-dark relationship, suddenly you're going to find yourself with an increased potential, and you're going to see things you never expected, double, triple, even more. Did it ever occur to you it might be nice to control them? Or are you just going to let them fly away or come out at any time? That's what would happen unless you understood the beauty of the design that you have around that which you have as a beautiful gift. Okay, Brian, you got my attention. I'm a healer. Would you give me something practical? How do I design it? How do I cook the meal? Dear ones, you have got an open communication with an entourage who knows your name and sits there when you're asleep looking at you. I want you to have a communication. Dear entourage, dear spirit, thank you for these marvelous gifts. It's time for me to design them. Give me the intuition and the energy that I believe in that helps me to know what to do in order to suppress the things that need suppressing and release the things that need releasing and the timing of it. And I want you to repeat this as often as it takes for you to believe it. It really only takes one time, dear ones. You're heard right away. And then the process becomes this. You start to get the intuitions. And you start expecting them. Then they start to work. Then you want some more. Then you start expecting more. And it's a process. Like exercising a muscle that you practice and practice. And pretty soon you realize, with the help of the entourage around you and God that is not in a box, who has always been there waiting for you to ask, that it's working. It's working. Healers of this planet, if you're listening, I want to tell you something. You need to start designing what you have for the new energy. And when I say designing, I am talking about you with your gift, specifically having a pattern of benevolence and control that is sacred and belongs to you, so that you can walk into a place and know exactly how that gift is going to work. That's necessary. It's needed. And it won't work as long as you think that all you've done is thrown a switch and that God isn't looking. Spirit knows you so well. Whoever you are sitting in this group or listening to these words, I have news. That there is a pattern for each of you to help you drop the fear, to help you advance in things that you didn't think you could advance in, to get control of your biology. All of these things have your name on them. It's not too much for Spirit, dear ones, to do this to millions at the same time. That's the spectacular energy of consciousness of God. Don't limit what you think is possible just because you don't believe you're in touch to that degree. You are. That's the invitation. If you think God is too far away to hear you, it's going to be an issue. But if you think you can whisper and be heard and loved by the eternal creative source, then you're on the right track. Dear Spirit, help me to shape my life in a way that's going to work because you know me better than me. My higher self, my soul on the other side of the veil, the entourage, whatever that is, I realize it's all there to help me right now on this planet during the shift so that I can live longer, I can be peaceful, I can deal with the little problems that are coming along my way almost every day. And that I can design a reality that is beautiful for me, not for anybody else but me. That's the individualness of the beauty of the love of God. Are you getting this? Bigger than you think, in this light, easier than you think, but it's not that which you've been told. So for some of you, it's harder. For some of you, it's easier. But dear ones, for all of you, it's possible. This is the message and will continue to be the message from this man in the chair. And so it is.